Alright, welcome to Quality of Life, Grace Teaching, New Covenant Ministry. Today we're going to read from the text, 2 Corinthians 1, 8 through 10. This is where the Apostle Paul is actually writing to the church at Corinth, and he's explaining to them why he's experiencing so much pressure in his life. Yes, God does have a plan. When we experience pressure and suffering, trials, tribulations, and so on. And so as he did with the Apostle Paul, I'm going to read 2 Corinthians 1, 8 through 10, where he says, "We think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble that we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and overwhelmed beyond our ability to endure. We would never live through it. In fact, we expected to die, but as a result, we stopped relying on ourselves and started relying on God who raises the dead. And he did rescue us from mortal danger, and he will rescue us again. We have placed our confidence in him, and he will continue to rescue us." So whatever you're going through today, as a believer in Christ, remember that sometimes the Apostle Paul, what he experienced this was beyond his strength. And so what he was learning was that God's ways is not our ways. And so what he was doing in Paul's life, the Apostle Paul's life, was he was allowing the pressure to push him from his will over to God's will. And so we know that we all have a will, and it wants to go left. Of course, God's will is right. And so sometimes he allows pressure to push us over to his will. And of course, his will is to trust in Christ. And that's where God was bringing the Apostle Paul. So remember that if we're going through something difficult today, pressure is intense, or whatever it is, remember that God has a plan and everything's in control, and he's allowing the pressure to push us, to shift us over to trusting Christ. You see, so we don't have to get stronger to be used by God. We have to get weaker. And that's what was happening with the Apostle Paul. And so God's ways are not our ways. Again, there are no strong men. There are only weak men who have a strong God. And so know that everything's in control today. And so remember, you're the most important person here, because without you, we could not teach. And remember, we learn so we can teach, and we teach so we can learn. So remember, as I'm shifting gears on this bike, if I was to ride in first gear down the road, this motorcycle would blow right up. So what I need to do is shift. And so it is, as believers in Christ, we need to shift from trusting in self-sufficiency over to trusting Christ's sufficiency. And then we see what the Apostle Paul was talking about when he says, "I can do all things through Christ, who strengthens me. I am self-sufficient in Christ's sufficiency." Thank you. This has been Quality of Life, Grace Teaching, New Covenant Ministry, and much, much more. Thank you, and God bless.